have been watching your every move.
As the tributes flow in for Caroline Flack, there is anger too. The former Love Island presenter has become the third death connected with the ITV show in the last 20 months. But her friend and fellow presenter said today that the show is not the problem, it's the trolls and the tabloids.
She loved to laugh and had the most infectious chuckle. She also had many struggles. I'm not going to pretend that she was perfect, but is anyone? She lived every mistake publicly under the scrutiny of the media. To the press, the newspapers who create clickbait, who demonise and tear down success. We've had enough.
Right, ladies and gents, step back for us, please.
Caroline Flack had been forced to step down from presenting Love Island as she was due to stand trial in a high-profile domestic violence case. She'd pleaded not guilty to the charge of an assault. Although her boyfriend wasn't supporting the prosecution, on Friday Miss Flack found out the court case would continue anyway. Today, her agents appeared to blame the CPS for her death.
The Crown Prosecution Service should look at themselves today and how they pursued a show trial that was not only without merit but not in the public interest, and ultimately resulted in significant distress to Caroline.
This was not a show trial. This was a case like any other domestic abuse case, like this 1,000 a day that the Crown Prosecution Service prosecute. I don't know what the evidence is, but I'm guessing it was 909 calls. It was body-worn camera by the police. There would have been medical evidence. There would have been evidence from police officers who attended the scene, potentially an interview as well.
Others have been pointing the finger at ITV. This from the executive editor of The Sun.
Caroline was hung out to dry by ITV. She was distraught they didn't stand by her and distraught by the lack of support she was given.
And yet, social media users point out the Sun newspaper was leading salacious coverage of her case. This is a mild example. We've chosen not to show the more egregious pages. At least one story has since been taken down online. But even some of ITV's own presenters are now questioning the future of Love Island. Eamon Holmes called for repercussions out of respect. Honey Lancaster-James worked as a psychologist on an early series of Love Island, although she didn't know Caroline Flack personally.
It's often very hard for people who are public figures to actually express how hard they find it, because they find that then they get a backlash saying, well, what have you got to complain about? Or you put yourself in this arena, as if the fact that you work in entertainment somehow means that the gloves come off.
ITV has said it is shocked and saddened by this desperately sad news. Not for the first time, a broadcaster finds itself plagued by questions of responsibility amid a tragic death.
Fatima Manji reporting, and if you've been affected by the issues raised in that story, support is available. Go to channel4.com/support. Well, I'm joined now by Natasha Devon, mental health campaigner and author. Thanks very much for coming in. I mean, first and foremost, this is an enormous tragedy for Caroline Flack's family and friends and all the people who loved her.
Yeah, and to be clear, I didn't know Caroline personally. I don't know about the specific circumstances that led to her death, and it's probably upsetting, maybe even damaging for the people who knew her to speculate. But we do know suicide is a symptom, and it happens when pain exceeds resources for coping with pain. And in about 90% of cases, it happens as a result of untreated depression or addiction. Having said all of that, I think with Caroline's case specifically, there's a real opportunity here to learn something about the world that we live in. And I think it's interesting the way that people have been passing the buck. Blame has been apportioned on all sides, whereas in fact, that blame needs to be shared. And we all need to think about what we can do to change the environment.
I mean, her friend Laura Whitmore today, in a really powerful piece on radio, spoke about the intense scrutiny that Caroline Flack had faced from the press and social media too. And that is a lot of pressure on a young woman who was clearly struggling.
I mean, to be clear, I think no matter the gender of the person, if somebody has experienced domestic abuse, they should be supported. And it's ludicrous to suggest that a domestic abuse case where there's substantive evidence should be dropped because the victim no longer wants to give evidence, because that rewards coercive behaviour. But outside of that, there was this show trial going on, and the way that the tabloids and social media sensationalized it, turned it into a circus, was absolutely disgusting. And to see some of the perpetrators of that today expressing their sadness is real hypocrisy.
I mean, the press, of course, is supposed to be regulated, and there'll be many people who will have looked at the coverage that Caroline Flack faced and feel that regulation is not working. But what do you do about social media? Because it is a free-for-all. People feel that they can say what they like.
Well, I think we have on social media a number of professional trolls who are really setting the tone. And you see them, I'm not going to name their names, but we all know who they are, who today are talking about how tragic they find Caroline Flack's death, but at the same time are bullying people like Jamila Jamil, Meghan Markle, Katie Price, people who we know are going through an emotionally and mentally turbulent time. We need to starve them of oxygen. We live in an attention economy where our clicks and our engagement are the new currency. We need to stop following and engaging with those people.
But so it's not for the social media companies, it's for us individually.
The social media companies have a responsibility too, but more and more the tone of media and of social media is being set by what we engage with. And so we all, as individuals, need to take responsibility.
I mean, Caroline, in what is now a particularly poignant Instagram post, wrote, "Be nice to people, you never know what's going on." I'm assuming you would say that's good advice.
I think it was really poignant when she posted, "In a world where you can be anything, be kind."
And of course, she was very successful. And as we heard the psychologist say in the piece, that can actually make people have less sympathy for you, think you're fair game.
And mental health issues are equal opportunity. They affect people from all walks of life. You never know somebody's pain and distress behind closed doors. So we should try always to treat people with kindness.
Natasha Devon, on that note, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you.